Don't be frightened by this daunting list of qualifications. Don't think, oh my God, I'm not up to this. I'm not ready for this. That's not the reason we are discussing these qualifications. It's not to scare you. Basically, if you're here, hearing Vedanta, and you're dedicated to it, you're basically qualified. And these qualifications will develop in you, because they are in you, as a result of hearing the teaching. Inquiry and association with the teacher will cause the qualifications to develop quickly. You will become dispassionate very quickly if you assimilate this information. You will become very discriminating if you assimilate this information. You will easily be able to resolve your mind into awareness, and your emotions, dissolve your emotions into awareness if you, it's called Sama, which is the one we talked about yesterday, we ended with. If you assimilate the meaning of these teachings, you will gain control of your senses rather quickly if you can assimilate the meaning of these teachings. You will learn how not to get your nose in other people's business and to take care of your own business if you assimilate the meaning of these teachings. You will learn how to let go of your ideals and become an actual, real, present person, warts and all. How to love yourself, warts and all, if you accept these teachings. These are all qualifications. You will become devoted to the truth if you assimilate the words that are contained in the scripture. So don't be frightened. Don't judge yourself and say, oh my God, I'm not worthy of it. If you're here, you have a human birth. By God's grace, you've come here. We call it punya karma. You have punya karma. Punya means good karma. As a result of meritorious actions you've done in this life or the previous life, and that has brought you here. It's the self in you that's brought you here. You may think you've brought you here, but it's the self in you that's brought you here. And so all of these things will develop. If you have a problem, then it's good to understand what these teachings are, because you can pinpoint the problem in yourself and you can work your way out of that problem rather quickly. That's why we point all this out. So just simply knowledge of these qualities is all that's required. And the knowledge will do the work for you. That's why we need to take quite a lot of time on these. Because it's easy to experience yourself, it's easy to get enlightened. But to stay enlightened, that's not that easy. It's easy to become self-realized, but it's not that easy to become self-actualized. And if you're unable to actualize your realization, it's only for want of these qualifications. Because these qualifications, if they're in full flower, they will neutralize your binding vasanas, your binding samskaras, your Pratibandhikas, they're called pratibandhikas, the things that bind you. That's why we take our time within every single text in Vedanta. Starts with these qualifications or refers to them. It assumes that you already have them. Shankar has written another text, many texts, but another smaller text, 65 verses, called Atmabodh, self-knowledge. And in the first verse, he doesn't bother to go about describing the qualifications. The first verse says, I am composing this treatise on self-knowledge for those who are purified and peaceful, calm of mind, and desirous of liberation. So there, all the qualifications are presumed. It's presumed that you're ready to hear this teaching. See? So every single text, we make a point of this. The modern spiritual teachings, as far as I know, and I may be wrong, do not discuss the qualifications that are necessary for enlightenment. I don't know if you've heard from other teachers outside of the lineage from which I come that qualifications are necessary. They do mention occasionally that you need to be ripe, but they never tell you what ripe means. We're telling you what ripe means. You need to know what it means. You can imagine that you're ripe and not be ripe at all. You can be green as anything. So we have to see, that's the point of this. We have to see what these things are, and that way it's a checklist for you to check inside yourself. There's no judgment implied here. Don't let your small little ego, that part that doesn't feel worthy, don't let that one interpret this teaching. You should have dispassion and discrimination with reference to that small little part of yourself that doesn't feel worthy. You're definitely worthy. If you're here, you're worthy. If you have a human birth, you're worthy. That's what he's saying. If you have a desire for liberation, you're worthy. If you have the good luck to have a teacher, you're worthy. And all that's required here is simply to listen. That's the first stage. And the next stage is to reflect. Manana. You use the logic of these teachings to dissolve the obstacles to your appreciation and assimilation of the meaning of the teaching. The meaning of the teaching is you're okay. That's the meaning. You want it very simple? You're fine. Nothing is missing. You're whole, you're complete, and nothing can be taken away from you. You can't lose anything. That's the meaning of the teaching. It's very simple. And if you can understand that and understand what that means in terms of your life here, then ta-ta to the teaching. Bye-bye. See you. I don't need a teaching anymore. Because that's all the teaching is. You're not studying Vedanta here. The hell with Vedanta. I'm not studying Vedanta. Vedanta is just the knowledge of who you are, and the knowledge of who you are is what? Whole, complete, non-dual, actionless, ever-present, unborn, ordinary awareness. If you can understand what that means, you can just parrot it like a monkey. A parrot can do that in a cage.
All I want is a I'm unborn, empty, non-dual, ordinary, actionless, awareness.
Go like that, you can. But you want to comprehend and understand what those words mean. Because those are just words that are describing yourself. That's all Vedanta's doing. It's don't get all excited here that you've got to study this great, arcane, mysterious, ancient, traditional wisdom from the rishis of yore 10,000 years ago.
the subtle truths and the great mystic experiences.
It's all nonsense. It's a very simple message. Vedanta is a very simple message. You're okay. That's what we're saying. You're fine. The only reason you're sitting here is because you don't think you're fine. So if you don't think you're fine, relax and we'll prove to you that you're fine. Okay? That's our job, is to prove to you. I say our, I mean the lineage. I'm speaking for the lineage. I'm not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for all those beings that went before me who realized this truth. So, the first one we'll just keep each time referring back and building up each time and refreshing your memory where we've gone. Because it's important, as I said earlier, to get the whole flow of the ideas. This is a complete teaching from A to Z. It's important to get the big picture in your mind. That's why you need to stick every time and stay and just keep at it. Because once that big mandala, once this whole mandala forms up in your mind and becomes firm, hey, you're good to go. Believe me, you're good to go. So we just keep catching up, and then we add a few more verses. Then we go back and catch up. Then we add a few more verses. This is teaching. It's learning. We have to repeat over and over again. Gradually, slowly, slowly, we'll all go together to clarity, to understanding. So it says discrimination is the firm understanding of the self, non-dual actionless ordinary awareness, this is verse 10, is eternal, and that the world of changing objects is non-eternal. And we discussed that yesterday, what the self was and what the not-self was. Discrimination also, this discrimination, which we said was Atma, Anatma Viveka, discrimination between the eternal and the ephemeral, this discrimination depends upon another discrimination that you need to have made. And that is a discrimination with reference to what you want. We call that Purushartha. Purushartha Nischaya are the words that are used in this tradition. It's discrimination with reference to your motivations. Because you cannot make this discrimination unless you're clear that that Kama, Artha, and Dharma will satisfy you. Will not satisfy you. In other words, that there's no security in security as it's conceived of in the world. There's no pleasure in pleasure as it's conceived of by the world. And there's no virtue in virtue as it's conceived of by the world. Because the purpose of all those things, the purpose of worldly security is for freedom. Why? What? I want freedom from insecurity. The only reason I care about financial security or worldly security is because I feel insecure. So I don't want the security for the security's sake, I want the security for the freedom's sake. Which means that when I'm pursuing these things in the world, I'm actually pursuing freedom. But I don't know I'm looking for freedom. I think I need the object. I need the good job. I need the money in the bank. I need marriage or whatever it is, or job, something. I need something outside that'll make me feel secure. But my actual intention is what? Freedom from the feeling of insecurity. The same with pleasure. Why do I pursue pleasure? Because I don't feel good. So I don't want the pleasure for its pleasure's sake. I want the pleasure for what? Relief from a feeling of being unhappy, bad. From the feeling of suffering. I need relief from that. So the actual ostensible motivation is not the real motivation. Same with virtue, trying to be good. Trying to prove to yourself that you're a good person and doing all these spiritual and holy things to make yourself feel good, saving the world, and so forth and so on. What is that about? That's not about making yourself feel good or making yourself feel virtuous or saving the world. That's about what? Relieving yourself of this idea that you're a sinner, that there's something wrong with you, that you're not virtuous as you are. So the underlying motivation for the pursuit of virtue is what? Freedom also. You're never going after what you think you're going after in this world. The things you're chasing in this world is not what you're chasing. What you're chasing in this world is freedom. This is what we mean by discrimination with reference to your motivation. Therefore, the conclusion is that since all of my activities are motivated by the desire to be free, why not just go for freedom directly? That's called mumukshutva. A mumukshu is a person who's searching for moksha, for freedom. It comes from the word muk, M-U-C. It means to be free of, to liberate. Why not just go directly for that moksha, rather than go for it indirectly through all these objects, which will give me temporary freedom, but hey, temporary freedom's what? Useless, isn't it? Because just 5 minutes after that freedom is, after you've enjoyed that freedom for 5 minutes, what happens? You want something more. The desire comes back again, doesn't it? Getting what you want does not remove your desires impermanently. The desires just keep multiplying endlessly. Because they're not there because you're not getting what you want. They're there because why? Because you don't know that you're okay. That's why they're there. They're not there because you don't have the car and the beautiful wife and the beautiful kids and the beautiful job and all the lovely stuff in the samsara. Those things are not there for that reason. They're there because I don't know I'm okay. Because there's all kinds of people out there with all the good stuff, right, who are miserable, who don't know they're okay, who are still trying to be okay when they've got all that stuff. Once it's clear that I want freedom, then what? Then the teacher comes. Then the teaching comes. And then you can what? Discriminate as we defined it yesterday, between the Atman, the self, and the not-self. This is a higher level of discrimination. There my discriminative faculty, my intellect, is employed solely in separating what? The subject from the object. See, the problem, I'll give you an example of discrimination, of Atma, Anatma, Viveka. Where is this pen? Where is it located? In my hand. Is that correct? In my hand. Does anybody say it is located anywhere else? No. Okay. I say it's not located in my hand. I'll be the devil's advocate here. And since everybody seems to think it's here, I will tell you that this pen is not in my hand. It does not exist in this space here, as it seems to be. When you analyze, and this is a teaching, this is a discrimination, an inquiry. It's just purely an analysis of experience. We're going to undertake this analysis of experience. You won't think this way on your own. That's why we need the teaching. When you see an object, and that can be any object, that object is bathed in light, isn't it? If there's no light in this room, you can't see the object. You need light to reveal objects. So the light is shining here, and it's reflecting off the pen. Light is bouncing off this, and then what happens? Then the stimuli the image of this pen, which is a stimuli, it comes in what? It passes through the pupil in my eyes. And when it goes through the pupil, it's reversed and appears on the retina, which is the back of the eye, the eyeball. The inside eyeball is like a circle. On this thing called the retina, it looks like this. It looks upside down. Out here it looks like this, but in there it looks like that. And then the mind takes that information and reverses it, and what? Pen knowledge arrives in my mind. The knowledge of an object is true to the object. Does anyone see a dog in my hand? Good. None of you have been smoking over at Mana Cafe. No, you see a pen. You do not see a dog or a cat or anything else. Because the knowledge that you experience, the knowledge of this pen, is true to the object, the pen. Now what? This pen, where am I experiencing this pen?
In the mind.
In the mind, correct. In the mind. And how far is the pen from the mind? Is the pen sort of floating off the surface? Here's the mind, and then it's sort of floating off the surface of the mind somewhere? Dancing around like that? No, it's not, is it? The mind has taken the form or the shape of the pen. The mind is like air or water. Air or water has no form, so it can conform to anything. Can it? This is why you can know anything, because the mind can take any kind of form that possible. It can take the form of the air, the water, the fire, a spiritual being, a spiritual experience. It can take the form of a mathematical formula. It can take the form of anything. It's capable of knowing anything because it can, what? Make the shape of that in itself, out of itself. So now I'm experiencing the pen in my mind, aren't I?
And in the hand, no?
But we'll get to that. Shanti, Shanti. We'll get down to that in a minute. Good thinking. You're thinking ahead. So I'm experiencing this pen, not out here, but in my mind. And the pen is not separate from my mind. Now, okay, the last question is, how far are you from your mind? Is there a gap between you and your mind?
No, there's no distance.
There's no distance. There's no separation between you and your mind. There's no distance. So, how far are you from this pen? You're not far. There's no separation. You are the pen. So is the pen over here? Huh? Is the pen here? No. The pen's here. The pen is me, isn't it? This is what non-duality means. Think about it. Now, okay, I see some people shaking their head. No. This doesn't work. This doesn't work for me. Okay, I'll tell you why you're right. Why it doesn't work for you. Huh? It doesn't work for you because of your reference point. What is the reference point from which this pen doesn't work? The body. Correct. Your point of view is the body. If you are the body, then the pen is over here. Definitely is. Isn't it? The pen is definitely over here if you're the body. I mean, that's obvious. Everybody will tell you that. Okay, but let me ask you this. Now think through this. Is the body you, or is the body known to you?
Not until.
Known to me. The body, well, what does that mean? The body is not me, isn't it? Does that mean that? I'm the knower of the body. My hand is me, but what? I'm not my hand, isn't it? The body has the same degree of reality as the pen. In other words, the body is an object to me, to awareness, just like the pen is an object to me, awareness. So now, is the pen over here or not? Is my body what? Something other than me? No, it's not. It's made out of what? It's known to me. It's a vibration, a vritti, a form or a shape in me, in awareness. Every single object is nothing but awareness appearing in a particular form. And awareness, am I separate from awareness? This is the only question I've got to answer now. Huh?
No.
No. Then have I got any problem with any object in the world? No. I don't have any problem. People. Where are the people? Where are all these people you love and hate? They're only in you, aren't they? They're manufactured out of you, they are you. Now, if a person, let's take a person, because this is where we have all our problems, most of our problems. Huh? If a person is me, am I going to treat that person badly? No? Answer? Good, Lyndon. Yeah, good. No. The short, am I going to think bad thoughts about that person? No. Why not? Because I don't want to injure myself. I don't want to injure myself. What's the natural response to yourself? You're going to love yourself, isn't it? So what? Ergo, I'm going to love everybody, aren't I? If I understand what non-duality means. Non-duality is not some experience of merging into objects. This is that experiential notion of enlightenment we talked about, where you imagine that you're going to come into some big orgasmic union with an object, and then you're going to feel this non-dual, I don't know what it is, it's love, whatever it is, and you're going to have this amazing experience. That's not what non-duality means at all. Non-duality is simply the understanding that nothing is separate from me. Based upon what? The facts. Based upon the facts. It's not a belief. We just analyzed it. We just showed it's not a belief. It's just a fact that nothing's separate from you. When you what? Discriminate. When you inquire or investigate into the nature of your experience, this is the only conclusion you can come to. Think about it. It's the only conclusion you can come to. So by discriminating the subject, me, consciousness, from the object, and going through that analysis, through that step-by-step analysis, what have we done? We've set ourselves free of the notion that what? We need to pursue any object to get happy, to get full, to get complete. Why? Because if you investigate yourself, you'll see the self is whole and complete. It includes everything. And everything is manufactured only out of you. In other words, nothing is experienced apart from consciousness. It's consciousness or awareness, you, that is experiencing everything. And just like the web of a spider is manufactured out of a spider, all of your experiences are manufactured out of you. And you're the one that's what? Shaping the web of your experiences according to what? Your own intelligence. This is the meaning of non-duality. And how do we arrive at it? Through discrimination. It's just a practical example of these teachings. There's no belief involved here. You are not required to believe one thing. You're only required to what? Follow the logic. If you stick with the logic step by step, what other conclusion can you come to? You can't come to any other conclusion that the what? Reality is non-dual. The interesting thing about the relationship between the subject and the object is that what? Even though the objects are the subject is not the object. Huh? That means the self and the objects are not the same. People think non-duality means sameness. We're all the same. Everything's the same. No, they're not the same. There's a distinction. That's why we have discrimination, because there's a distinction between the objects and the subjects. And what is that? Why are they not the same? Because when an object appears, it loses its sentiency. It no longer is self-aware. It no longer knows anything. It becomes inert and insentient. And an insentient thing cannot know. This chair is awareness, but it is not sentient. It doesn't know it's a chair. And it doesn't know I'm sitting in it talking about it. Does it? Even though it's made out of me, as soon as I think the chair thought, what? It's made out of me. But it doesn't know me. So I know the chair, but what? The chair doesn't know me means what? Think about it. I am free of all the objects. That's called moksha. It's called liberation. I am free of the objects. Now think about that. If you really assimilate that information, that knowledge, are you going to be attached to anything in this world? No, you're not. Are you going to what? Be chasing any particular kind of experiences to make yourself feel complete? Are you going to be doing that? No, you're not. Because none of this that's happening here validates me. I, awareness, am the light that validates the existence of everything. In other words, all the objects depend upon me, but I don't depend upon the objects. At all. If you're chasing objects, it's like the tail's wagging the dog. Huh? Hey, the dog's supposed to wag the tail. It's not the other way around. If you don't know you're the self, the tail's wagging the dog. Here you are out there chasing all these objects, thinking that those things, security, pleasure, virtue, power, money, fame, sex, blah, 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 thinking that all those things are going to validate you, can make you whole, make you complete, justify you to yourself, that you're okay because you've got all these things. But these things can't justify you at all because they're not even conscious. They aren't nothing. They're just inert, insentient objects appearing in awareness. I validate them. As soon as I take my light, my awareness away from any object, what happens to the object? Poof! It collapses. You have an emotional problem. What happens? Put your attention, as we said here in this verse yesterday, turn your attention from the emotion back to what? The one who knows the emotion, the one who's there prior to the emotion. Who would that be? Me, awareness. And what happens to the emotion? Poof, gone. Or if it doesn't just disappear, it shrinks to manageable proportions. In Vedanta, we have two concepts of superimposition. Superimposition is confusing the subject with the object. Okay? You superimpose the object on yourself, you take the object to be yourself, and therefore you suffer. That's called superimposition. Or you think you're this person and you superimpose yourself on that, and you imagine that you're something other than what you are. You think you're a great enlightened person, but you're really just a jerk saying you're a great enlightened person. That's another form of superimposition. Whether you superimpose from here down or from here up, it doesn't matter. And there's this belief in the spiritual world that when you understand who you are, that what? All the objects are meant to poof, disappear. You know, like the snake and the rope. You know the snake and the rope story? A person mistakes a rope for a snake and feels fear, and then somebody comes along and says, hey, that is not a snake, that's a rope. And then what happens to the snake? Poof! Gone. Isn't it? It just disappears. You can't get the snake back once you know it's a rope. You could look at it all day long, and the snake's not going to emerge out of that rope. You can understand how you could have seen a snake there, but you could never get the snake to appear back. It just poofs out of existence. So people think when they realize the self that all the objects are going to go poof, and they're going to be walking around some of these space cadets around here.
The great transcendental void. So, but I'm not here, the knownness, the emptiness.
No, you see him. There was a guy here like that. He had 10 disciples, and he was a zombie type. And all the people behind him were all zombies too. They were walking down the street, trying to prove to everybody in Tiruvannamalai that they weren't here and that they weren't seeing a world, that there was nothing going on. You've seen him. You've all seen him. Spiritual world is full of the most goofy people, I tell you. And there's another method, another type of superimposition. And the example we used to explain that, and this is the example we're going to talk about now that's relevant. That's the example of a mirage on the desert. Fata Morgana, for those of you who are Europeans. We call them mirages, you call them Fata Morganas. When you see water on the desert, do you go and drink it? No. Why not? Because you know it's not water, isn't it? You know it's a Fata Morgana. It's a mirage. When you know that it's a mirage, does the water disappear? No. The water stays there, doesn't it? When you make this discrimination, your body and your mind and the world and your friends and your family and your jobs and your wife and your kids and all this stuff, it stays right put where it was before. It's not going away. Believe me. Right? It's going to be, this is a big shock. This is a huge shock. Because everybody thinks if they get this, all their problems are going to be wiped out. But their problems are not going to be wiped out. The problems are going to be sitting right there every second. I have a friend that was once a millionaire, and he kept spending instead of taking care of his money, kept spending it down. And then in the process, he awakened to himself and realized he was the self. And then he thought, when he realized the self, that would take care of the money thing. In other words, the money would come back, because now he's realized, and of course, the world's going to throw money at him. But hey, karma doesn't know you're enlightened. The objects don't know you're enlightened, guys. They don't know anything. They're behaving according to certain rules. And those rules have nothing to do with you. All that happens when you understand you're the self is what? You know none of this is real. Knowing it's not real is how you get out of the problem. Right? That's how you get out of the problem, is knowing it's not real. The problem is going to be there. Whatever it is going to be there. Everything's going to be the same. The person who believes that they're real is going to be canceled by this knowledge. That's all. And the real person is going to what? Stand apart from whatever happens, enjoying his or herself by his or her own self, by the self. The self enjoys itself by itself. It doesn't require any objects for enjoyment. It is self-enjoying. Paramasukadam. That was one of the verses we chant. Brahmanandam Paramasukadam. It's the greatest pleasure. It enjoys itself. It's self-revealing, self-experiencing, self-enjoying. No need for objects at all. That's moksha. That's freedom. Okay, so the mind is resolved when, bolstered by dispassion towards objects, its attention is removed from the objects and repeatedly placed in the self. There's your practice, your spiritual practice. That's called sama, S-A-M-A. If you can't, resolve the mind. Resolve the mind means get rid of your agitations. Gets rid of the things that are bothering you. That's all the resolution is. There's always things that are... Life is just one series of problems. Every single day. If you think you're going to get a problem-free life, forget it. You've just got to accept yourself as a troubleshooter here. I had this problem when I first started learning computers. Because I thought computers were supposed to work all the time the way they're supposed to work. And I was always pissed off when I got those nag screens, and things went bad and I had to reformat and do this and call some techie and get on the internet. And I always got myself irritated. And then one day I thought, this is not right. There's something wrong with me. And then I realized, I got the wrong idea. I should think that I came here to fix computers. And that's what I like doing, and that's my job. That I'm just here as a troubleshooter. That's my little duty. And so I started enjoying fixing the problems. So it's the same thing here. Every day you got a problem. There's never a day when there isn't some damn problem that you've got to sort out. And how do you sort it out? With reference to who you are. That's called sama. If you can't do that, in other words, if your mind still stays agitated, then the next qualification is called dhamma. It says, and that's called putting the organs of perception and action in their respective places after withdrawing them from their respective objects is called self-control. In other words, when somebody's irritating you or when you're irritated, go ahead and be irritated, but keep your mouth shut. Okay? Unless you are requested in triplicate, with a notary seal on it, for your opinion or for some action on behalf of yourself or others, keep your mouth shut. A person who knows, or keep your sense organ, whatever it is, keep your tongue away from the food, or your little sex organ away from the whatever it is. Because as soon as you get yourself hooked up with one of these objects, one of these sense objects, you got problems. You got a whole new set of problems are coming on, and a whole bunch more agitations are going to come to your mind. And your mind is not going to be resolved. So this is control at the sense organ level. Really. These vasanas, these cravings and fears, they've got to be managed. If you can't manage them by what? understanding that you're awareness and seeing them as objects, then at least what? Don't create karma with them. Because as soon as you involve your senses, you're going to get karma, which means what? You're going to have more agitation because the world is going to start impacting and impinging on you. As long as you think it's not a problem. The world just doesn't know what you're thinking. But nobody knows what you're thinking. But as soon as you open your mouth, boom, there it comes. The biggest, and so this is a discipline. If you want to practice, you say Vedanta has no practices. We call it Vak Tapas. Vak means speech, and it means restraint of the speech. And speech should be pleasing and truthful and compassionate. Do I need to say this to you? Oh no, I'm just being honest. This is how I'm just being honest. You're a jerk. You're a jerk. No, don't take it personally. I'm just being honest. Huh? You're just being honest. Excuse me? Boom. That's what you get. That's what you get for your honesty. You get a punch in the nose. Huh? You should get a punch in your nose. Huh? When the world wants to hear from you, let it solicit the information. Otherwise, keep your mouth shut and your attention on the self. Oh no, I've got things to say. Things are not right here. I've got to see that the world is okay. I'm going to fix the world. Such a bunch of bullshit. Trying to fix the world and save the world and make everybody right and fix everybody and make everybody happy. Hey, make yourself happy and take one jerk out of the world and the world will be happy. That's how you save the world. Get you out of it. Number 4. Non-depending on external objects by the ego, or absence of minus. Absence of minus. Hey, tell me what belongs to you. Okay, can you tell me one thing that belongs to you? Don't answer this question. Because you're asking for a big teaching. Not one thing belongs to you. Every single thing that you have is created by what? Ishvara, the macrocosmic mind, ignorance. We'll explain to you why it's ignorance later on. Okay, we'll call it God, to keep it simple. Everything here is created by God. God means awareness functioning as the creator. That's what God means. Did you create your body? Don't think so. Body was given to me. Isn't it? Your body was given to you. Oh, now let's see. I'm pure spirit, I'm pure consciousness, and I need a body. How will I do that? Let's see. I think, well, let me see. I've got to work this out because I need a body. No, hey. You didn't sit down and figure out how to make this body. This body was given to you. It appeared you one fine day. There you were, consciousness, and boom, a little fat baby body, appeared in you. And who's making your food digest right now? Who's doing that? Me? I'm digesting my food? I don't think so. The prana fires, Bhagawan, the self, operating what? The energy systems is causing the food to digest, the blood to circulate, the breath to go in and out, etc., etc., etc. Okay, okay, my thoughts. Okay, tell me what you're going to think in 10 minutes. Just write it down, and then I'll ask you in 10 minutes what it is. Huh? Huh? You're not even in charge of your thinking. You didn't, huh? Where are your thoughts coming from? Do you own those thoughts? I don't think so. That's given to you also, isn't it? What about your emotions? Okay, I say get angry. Get angry. You can't get angry. Huh? Anger happens. When some object, right, obstructs you, when something obstructs you, anger happens, but you don't plan on it.
And to control it.
Huh?
And what about controlling it?
Well, you can't really control it either. You can't say, I'm controlling either. As long as you believe you're a person, then you need to control it. As long as you take yourself to be this person, then you need to exercise some kind of restraint here. In fact, when you actually look at the whole picture of how reality is set up, nobody's controlling anything here. So, feelings, emotions, body. What about the air? Did you manufacture the air, the fire, the water, the earth, all that stuff? You didn't Does any of that belong to you? Well, okay, then tell me what does belong to you. Nothing belongs to you. This is my wife. That is not your wife. There's a conscious being there. That conscious being is awareness appearing in that form. And the my is something I'm putting on my wife. It's no my. Doesn't belong to me. My children. There's one. That's the hardest one to get over. To thinking that, but hey, where did those children come from? Did you manufacture the sperm? Did you manufacture the egg? Did you get that stuff all worked out together? Did you make it grow, etc., etc.? Are you making it? No. None of those belong to you either. God, manufactured all these children, and is taking care of them all the time. None of them belong to anybody. There's no minus. So he says that not letting your ego depend upon these objects. That's qualification. Objectivity towards pain of all kinds without anxiety. Complaint or attempt to revenge. That revenge is called titiksha. See, everything in this field here, in the Dharma field, is a duality. Pleasure and pain are built into this. Joy and sorrow are built in here. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the nature of this field that suffering is going to be in this field, that pain and pleasure is going to be in this field. Suffering doesn't have to be there. If you take an objective view. Now, what would be the objective view? From the point of view of the self, wouldn't it? If you look at this from the point of view of the self, you won't add your personal misery to what is just appearing in you. You can't help it. Hey, what about the loudspeakers at 3 in the morning? I mean, I figured a way around it, but because I've been here like 30 years. But basically, you can't do anything about it, can you? You have to hear it, but all you can do anything about is what? Titiksha is what? Take an objective view. Don't add suffering to it and say, oh my God, what am I doing here? What is it? Why did I make this decision? Oh my God, I've got to move. In India, no matter where you move, isn't it? You think you can escape, but you just escape to another form of misery. So I look at it, understanding that reality is that way, I can take an objective view of it. When I think it's mine, or that it's personal, that it's trying to torture me or whatever, or that I've made a mistake because I'm in this situation, you haven't made a mistake. It's just the nature of reality. And so you forbear. It's called forbearance. Let's take 5 and then, okay, now look, on this one, you got exactly till 15 after. And at 15 after, I'm going to close the door and you can't get back in. So, all right? We're not going to have one of those things like yesterday. One we left off on this, it's one of my favorite qualifications. Needs to be included. It's included on other lists. It's called Swadharmaha. You can just include that in between 4 and 5 if you want. 4A. 4A is Swadharmaha. And Swadharma means doing your own duty. And that has 2 components. One meaning of that term is to take care of your own stuff first before you look after other people's stuff. This is a particularly difficult one for women. The women are conditioned to look after everybody else before they take care of themselves. And it causes a lot of resentment that you're not required to do that. The society tells you you're required to do it. But if you're going for moksha, you need to be able to take care of your stuff first, and only take care of somebody else's stuff if they request it. Okay? If there is a sincere and legitimate request for help, then do their dharma, do their duty, help them to do their duty. Otherwise, stick to your own duty, because, and here's the logic. The logic is, if you take care of everybody else's stuff, you're never going to work out what you have to work out to get where you need to get spiritually. You will just continually defer your spiritual growth for the sake of somebody else. And that isn't what? It's not helping the other person either. Why not? Because when you're taking care of their stuff, they're not taking care of their stuff, and you can't work out their stuff. They've got to work out their stuff. So this idea that you're doing good and you're feeling virtuous because you're doing good means you're violating your own dharma. You are not required to look after anybody. You want to look after people because for various reasons. And you should look into your motivations for doing that. There are certain legitimate motivations. There are certain legitimate reasons why you can help other people. But if you got some kind of big trip to save the world and help other people, and it's making you feel virtuous, then what? You're not actually qualified for moksha. And on the basis of any one of these qualifications, if it's to your violation of that qualification or your non-compliance with that qualification is egregious, it will just simply prevent you from moving on spiritually. The other meaning of Swadharmaha means not trying to live up to an ideal. This is, again, a huge problem for spiritual people. Most of the women want to be like Mother Teresa. Or Amma. Well, no, you don't really. I mean, we discovered that Mother Teresa was really miserable. But when her diaries came out, it turned out she was really a miserable person. But Mother Teresa was miserable. Why? Because she was trying to live like Christ. That's why she was miserable. She thought it was her duty to become like Christ. So she spent all of her time trying, she wasn't Christ. She spent all of her time trying to be like Christ, and so she was never herself. She never accepted all of her stuff, all of her junk. She just suppressed it, kept it away, and kept striving to be Christ-like. In other words, she was living up to an ideal. Well, this is not self-improvement here. We're not trying to be better people. If you're a scoundrel, be a scoundrel, for God's sake. Stop trying to be a saint. The men all want to be like the Buddha, you know.
Peaceful, blissful, non-attached, equanimous.
Hey, you're not equanimous. You're not the Buddha. Pack it in. The Buddha's the Buddha. You're you. Role models. Trying to be like somebody that you think is so cool. Don't try to be like somebody who's so cool. Be yourself. Warts and all, accept yourself as you are, and start where you are. Accept yourself and be honest with yourself. All of these are what? Strategies to avoid dealing with your stuff. That's what Swadharma means. Looking at yourself and showing integrity with reference to what you are. You know, if you're selfish and vain and egotistical and so forth, then what? Accept it. Say to yourself, I'm selfish, I'm vain, and I'm egotistical. Don't try to put on a funny, smiley face and walk around pretending like you're selfless and what? Non-egotistical and not vain. You're humble and so forth. You see these people going around all the time trying to cover up the crap with all of these smarmy smiles and this phony spiritual behavior. All these... the fake bliss look. The one I like to satirize is Sri Chinmoy. Did you ever see his pictures?
Yeah.
So gross. Let's see if I can do it. No, I can't do it very well. He makes his eyes go straight up because that means he's looking at consciousness. And then he's got this fake smile, like a politician smile. You know the one the politicians put on? You know very well they're bullshitting you and lying. They have this lovely smile on their face. Swadharma means looking at yourself, taking yourself as you are. Stop pretending. Stop trying to be something other than what you are. You're not qualified. That's a big one. That's a big problem. So, you know, these are just checkups. Have a look. Now, here's one of the most important. The hard and fast conviction. This is number 5. The hard and fast conviction that the words of Scripture and the teacher are true. And this is called faith. Shraddha means faith. And it's a peculiar kind of faith that we're talking about in Vedanta. It's not blind faith. We're not interested in blind faith. Please, if you want to have blind faith, go to religion. The religion does blind faith very well. And if you want to just mindlessly believe, then go to religion. Choose yourself a religion and enjoy yourself. It's not necessarily bad. It can solve certain problems for you. But the kind of faith we're talking about here is faith pending the result of what? Investigation born of what? The teaching. You take it on board. This is very simple. Take it on board that you're okay. I know you don't believe it. I know it doesn't look like you're okay. I know you don't believe you're enlightened and you're good enough and all of that. But please, accept the fact that, as the Scripture says, you are whole and complete, pure and perfect as you are. Accept that. And then, since you don't believe it completely, make the investigation along the lines that the Scripture suggests to see whether or not it's true. That's all. Just see if it's true or not. These teachings will prove to you that it's true, that you are beautiful, that your nature is love, that you are the light. That's the faith. That you're not this greedy, self-centered little fearful worm, picking around in the garbage heap of Maya, looking for a little bit of num garbage to masticate. That's how we're looking at ourselves, as this little needy, incomplete, inadequate person. And we're saying, you're not a needy, incomplete, inadequate person. Take it on board that you're beautiful. Take it on board. Accept it. And then start thinking about it in line of what? We'll show you how to think so that you can prove it to yourself. And you'll see that it's true. You are fine. That's all faith means. All the time, every day this doubt comes out. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. People don't love me. Whatever it is. You've got your own little, everybody's got that little voice inside that says, I'm not okay. And we're saying, okay, that voice is there, but I don't have faith in that voice. I have faith in the voice of the Scripture. The voice of the Scripture is what? That you're beautiful. So that's Shraddha. And the teacher. You have to assume that the teacher's telling you the truth. I'm a real bullshitter, but you'll know when I bullshit you. I'll put a little sign, I'm bullshitting you now, and you'll know. Just for fun, we have a little, we got to make this light and easy, otherwise you're going to get all bent out of shape. So I've got to tell little stories and make it okay. But basically what I'm telling you is the truth. I verified it through my own experience, and this verified my experience. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not getting rich off this, and I'm not getting laid out of this. I'm not getting anything out of it. I just do it for the sake of, because I love it. And because it worked for me. So you should have faith in the teacher and the teaching, it says. And always think about it in your mind, people, because I'm outspoken. I just call a spade a spade. I hate all this smarmy spiritual bullshit and everybody trying to be non-judgmental. Oh, you're judgmental. Well, hey, everybody's judgmental. Everybody's got, and you should be judgmental. You've got an intellect to make judgments. It depends upon what the logic is behind your judgments and your opinions. Do you have good reasons for them? We've got good reasons for what? Our attacks on dumb ideas. These are not judgments. These are just simple, but common sense conclusions that come about as a result of understanding the logic. So I just say it like it is, and then people say, oh, he's mean. See, he's not really spiritual. He's got a problem. He's aggressive. He's angry. He's got psychological problems. Somebody told me, you're not healthy. Okay, I'm not healthy. Fair enough. Now you can hear that. See, this teaching speaks to you, to the self, and the self hears it. Let the self hear it. Don't step in the way and allow you to project stuff on me or on the teaching that isn't there. It's okay to watch that projection mechanism taking place. It's natural to not like certain things about a teacher. I had certain issues with my teacher. There were some things about him I did not like, but I love that guy 100%, I'll tell you. All gods have feet of clay, and don't let their little clay feet get in the way. Just take the teaching, listen to the teachings. Don't get hung up on how the teacher's delivering and whether he's like this and whether he's like that and whether he's warm and fuzzy or whatever it is. I'm not the warm and fuzzy type. So you want that? There are other huggy gurus around. You can go to them. I know. I've learned how to hug. but they're not the great hugs you're going to get from the real huggers. I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. I want to be loved, so I'll work on it. Okay. Now here, this is a good one. Always and in every way putting the mind on awareness. Not pacifying or entertaining the mind. That's a good point. All this spiritual stuff is like pacifiers, entertainment. I'm agitated, so I just go run around the Samadhi shrine until I start to feel okay, and then I walk out. That's not putting the mind in self. That's just using spirituality to what? Cope with an emotional or psychological problem. Or entertaining the mind. Going to these satsangs trying to get high. Trying to get an experience of oneness. It's just mind candy. Forget the mind candy what? Just keep your mind constantly on who I am, on who am I. And now we said yesterday that's a very simple knowledge, I'm okay. And you're learning why you're okay. This is the teaching, is just to teach you why you're okay. Because you don't believe it, we're going to prove to you and show you why you're okay. You're okay because you're awareness, that's why. But you have to know what that means. And we explain to you what it means. Anyone can say I'm awareness. Everybody knows. Does anybody know they're not awareness in this room? Good. Everybody knows they're awareness. But what does it mean to say I'm awareness? What does that mean? In terms of what? How I live every moment. See, that's where the rubber meets the road in this teaching. It's not that I'm awareness, it's that how do I live every day? Am I living from that consciousness of being whole and complete? Am I treating the world and behaving in such a way that all my actions, what? Reflect my knowledge of that I'm whole and complete. Anyone can say, I'm awareness. And it's true. It's true you are awareness. But so what? What isn't awareness? What isn't awareness? Everything's awareness. Everything's manufactured out of me. So it's, what does that mean in terms of my relative existence here? That's the problem. That's the issue. Does that knowledge neutralize the doer? Does it cancel my binding vasanas?
No.
No? It should. If it doesn't, it should. It should cancel your binding vasanas. If it doesn't, then it's not, then the knowledge on awareness isn't good enough. Is it? We're going to talk about vasanas as we go along. Vasanas is just your conditionings, your fears and your desires. That's a little V here on the chart. Those things need to be neutralized by the knowledge. Not the non-binding ones. Non-binding ones means the things that you can take or leave. That's the binding ones, the things you can't walk away from that need to be neutralized by this knowledge. Anyone could say I'm enlightened, but then look and see how they behave. Behind that idea of enlightenment, are they using that to what? Get what they want in the world? A lot of people are. A lot of people are making a serious buck out of the enlightenment business. You just look, you can look around. It's like $40 for a video that says nothing. You just babble. It's vague, spiritual, blah, blah. And they want $40 for it. All fancy, dressed up, and so on. When you listen to it, it's like cotton candy. It looks good, but there's, the content is almost zero. And then it leaves a kind of funny taste in your mouth, and you'll be confused at the end of it. Anyway, so not pacifying the ego or entertaining yourself with spirituality, but samadhana means just keeping steadily your mind on the topic. And that presupposes a certain kind of lifestyle. You have to, you have to have a lifestyle where you can actually keep your mind on the topic. If you've got too many other distractions, your mind's just going to be dealing with all these distractions. And finally, burning desire to let go of attachments born of ignorance, or attachment to objects born of ignorance, and recognizing the self as the highest value. It's called mumukshutva. There was a great sage named Ramakrishna, and he had a disciple named Vivekananda. You may have heard of him. How many have heard of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda? Yeah, everybody. And when Vivekananda he went to Ramakrishna, he heard Ramakrishna talking about this word, mumukshutva. Means a burning desire for liberation, and he didn't understand it. So he went to the Swami and he said, Swami, what do you mean by this? And Ramakrishna says, forget it, it doesn't matter. And this guy is a big intellectual, Ramakrishna. He created the whole Ramakrishna mission, went all over the world. He was very famous. He was a Hindu revivalist. He revived Hinduism in the first half of the last century. He was a very powerful, important person in the Vedic tradition. And so he wasn't, he was upper caste, he was a Kshatriya, and he wasn't going to take a no for an answer from some guru, even though it was his guru. So he kept bugging him, and Ramakrishna, he was a funny guy. And he just said, never mind, you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't, you know how you do with people? No, you wouldn't understand it. That just makes them want to know more. Now when you say, no, I'm not telling you, then you want, why aren't they telling me? What's going on here? So he comes back, asks him again, he keeps putting him off. So then one day, a few days later, they were down at the river, the Hooghly, and now they call it the Ganges. But anyway, bathing. You won't be bathing in that river now, I'll tell you. And not there, even not there at Dakshineshwar where he lived. And they were bathing, and the Hindus have this habit, this ritual where they grab their ears and they bob up and down. Have you seen that one? They bob up and down 3 times to chant the mantra and all that. One, you're supposed to immerse yourself to purify your gross body, and then one immersion for your subtle body, and then the third immersion for your causal body. So you purified all of your systems by this ritual. So he bobs down once, then he bobs down twice, and when he bobs down the 3rd time, the Guru just jumped on him, put his foot on his back, grabbed his arm, and held his nose right on the bottom of the riverbank. And the guy's a big guy. Vivekananda was a big guy. He was struggling, but Ramakrishna had the advantage, and he was twisting his arm and holding him down there, and just creating a lot of suffering for him. And he's like struggling, and Ramakrishna's just holding him down. At the very last minute, when he's just about ready to breathe in this water, Ramakrishna lets him pop up, and he's really mad. You son of a bitch, you he's in India, if you hit somebody with your hand, it's bad. But if you take off your sandal and hit them, 10 times worse. That's the biggest insult, is to take your sandal. So he wants to take his chappal off and beat Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna said, okay, you're right. I deserve it. That was very bad. I'm a bad man. I'm a bad guru. I'm sorry. And I definitely deserve punishment. That was not a nice thing to do. But, may I ask you a question? And the guy said, a question? Are you kidding? You're asking me a question? You're just trying to avoid getting a beating. That's what you're trying to do. He said, no, honestly, you can beat me. No problem. You can beat me. I'm happy to take my beating. I deserve it. But first, I want to ask you a question. All right, what's the question? What were you thinking about when you were down there? What were you thinking about? Thinking about? Are you kidding? I wasn't thinking. You've got to be kidding. I wasn't thinking. And the Guru says, yeah, I think you were. I think you were thinking. I told you I was not thinking. Yes, you were. You were thinking. Okay, what was I thinking? He said you had one thought in your mind and one thought alone. And what was that? Air. He said when you want liberation like you wanted air, that's called mumukshutva. when your desire to be free is burning like that, huh? All these other qualifications will be, whoop, they'll just appear right there. The guru will appear, the teaching will appear, and the assimilation will take place. Because that, you know what? Why? Because that's the self wanting to be free. And the self will not be denied. The self realizes it's had it. You've got to understand you've had it here. I've just done enough. I will not suffer anymore in this samsara, this world of time and coming and going. I just will not do it. That refusal to what? Stay attached to objects. He says it's a willingness, or not only a willingness, but a burning desire to let go of all those things that are impeding me, that are hanging me up. I want to burn down that house that ego built, that ignorance built. I want to burn it down. I'm in a hurry to get rid of all this shit. Please, let's get on with it. That's the feeling. That happened to me when I was 25. I just suffered so much in life. And I had an epiphany where I saw the self, and I realized there was a self, and my life was going that direction when it started, and my life went that direction when that epiphany ended. It only lasted about 15 minutes, but my life turned exactly around. And I just let go of everything. I sold a very lucrative business for a fraction of what it was worth. I quit eating meat, I quit smoking, I quit drinking. All of the bad habits that I picked up in the samsara to help me cope with reality from that point of view of ignorance, I let all those things go because I knew what I wanted. And I went off searching for the self. So that's that burning desire for liberation. Assuming that what? I am a qualified person, that I have this strong desire, that I have a proper teacher and a proper teaching. If I don't get enlightened, take it easy, don't get excited. Why? There's one more factor. It's not included in this particular text, but it's included in the other text. It's called Kala or Devam, time or God. Your enlightenment fits into the enlightenment of the whole world. None of this is, there's no doer here. Except what? Ishvara, except God. God's doing everything, and God needs your enlightenment when God needs your enlightenment. When you're on the bus, when you get on the Vedanta bus, you can relax. That's all you need to do. You don't need to worry about your enlightenment. Ramana says, when you get on the bus, you don't what? Carry your luggage on your lap, do you? Get on the bus, and I'm going to Bombay, and I'm holding my luggage like this. Hey, now why would you do that? Why would you be carrying your luggage with you when you can set it on the floor and the bus will carry it? Why would you do that? The bus is going to get to the destination. It may break down a few times. They'll come up with a tire or two, and a mechanic will come and fix it. But it will get there. Just relax. Look out the window and enjoy yourself. If you're doing everything, if you're qualified and you're doing everything, and you're listening to this teaching, and you're doing your inquiry, that should be enough. Take it easy. Stop worrying about, why am I not enlightened today? I get these emails almost every day now from people around the world. They've got anxiety about their enlightenment. Hey, relax. Enjoy yourself. When the time is right, you will understand. And your enlightenment will go out and bless everybody else. It's not just for you that we're doing this, that this is happening. It's what? For the sake of the world, for the sake of the total. And your enlightenment fits right into that. So take it easy. So that's qualification. We did talk about the teacher yesterday, but we should go through these verses. Now, if I'm qualified, then what? I should have a teacher. To gain liberation, a qualified person who wants to know the truth should approach a teacher who has knowledge of the Scriptures. We said that yesterday. You need a valid means of knowledge. They don't just a valid means of knowledge. A person who claims they have a teaching, that's not a valid means of knowledge. That's based on their own experience. You may get high from it. It may work partially for you, but it's not a valid teaching, necessarily. If you're highly qualified, maybe a person who doesn't have a valid means of knowledge can get enlightened. Occasionally that happens. A person who has all these qualities may just hear some few words from a guru or a teacher that is enlightened in the right circumstances at the right time, and Bhagavan makes the self what? Makes them listen and assimilate, and they could gain it like that. But basically, unless you're highly, highly, highly qualified, you're going to need what? Somebody who knows the Scripture. And don't imagine that you're highly qualified if you're not. Everybody, that's the trick the ego plays, to keep you from what? Surrendering to the teaching. Oh, that can just happen. It'll just happen. It's just by grace. That's all. I don't really have to. Well, you need a teacher, and you need a Scripture, right? A qualified teacher tells what it is. You should check up on these teachers. If you're going to teachers, check up on them. Look and see, do they fit this definition? Right? A qualified teacher is one who knows the import of the Scriptures by direct knowledge experience, and whose mind is resolved in awareness. Mind resolves in awareness means that person always can what? Lead you back to awareness. His or her thinking always comes from the self and always goes back to the self. So once you tune into his or her thought process and listen to his or her words, it will take your mind back to this over and over and over again, because the teacher's mind is always resolved in what? The knowledge of non-duality. If the teacher's telling you it's experiential, that's not going to do any good, is it? If they say, I am experiencing enlightenment, that's not going to do you any good. His mind may be resolved in that, but that's not going to resolve your mind, is it? Because experience doesn't transfer. What I'm experiencing doesn't transfer into you. Knowledge can be transferred into you, but experience cannot be transferred. His or her mind glows like the coals of a fire deprived of fuel. That's a beautiful one, isn't it? Huh? His or her mind glows like the coals of a fire deprived of fuel. What's that mean? The binding vasanas have been burned up and there's radiance there. The mind is clear and aware and available to tune into. You tune into the teacher's mind, you'll see what the teacher sees. If you listen to the teacher and get your mind in tune with the teacher's mind, right? Because his mind is desireless, it's just glowing what? Without the vasana fuel, it's glowing because it's consciousness. That's how coals are. You don't have to have a bunch of things to make them. They're just burning on their own. So his or her mind glows like the coals of a fire deprived of fuel. He or she can wield the means of knowledge confidently, is compassionate without a reason. They're not trying to be compassionate and help you. We are not trying to help you. It's just our nature to be this way. We can't help it. You know the story of the man who's watching the sadhu bathing? And the sadhu was bathing, and there was a scorpion on the rock next to the sadhu. And the scorpion fell in the water. And the sadhu picked it up, put it back on the rock, and it stung him. So this man observed that. And then the scorpion was running around a little excited, and it fell in the water again. And the sadhu, and it was struggling in the water, and the sadhu picked it up a second time and put it back on the water, and he got stung again. He got stung a second time. And the man that was watching him got furious. He says, are you mad? What's wrong with you? Are you nuts? Okay, once you got stung, fair enough. But now the second time you got stung, I mean, you're an idiot. What's wrong with you, man? And the son who said, it's his nature to sting, it's my nature to save. Huh? We're not trying to save you. It's just our nature to save you. This teaching is a salvation. That's all it is. There's no reason for it. I'm not getting paid for it. I don't feel virtuous because I'm doing what I do. It's just my nature to give this information out, this knowledge out. It's just out of compassion or love that we do this. That's why we do it. It's no other reason. You have to watch these gurus. Collecting money, collecting power, collecting fame, collecting all this stuff. They're not just hugging you for what? For no reason. Make sure you understand that their motive is pure. Otherwise you'll get caught up in their web. And particularly the ones who are selling enlightenment as an experience. Because there's no way you could question that. You just have to take it on faith. Okay. Unaffected by desires for objects, and it means they have desires for objects, but they're unaffected by it. The desires are in them, it's normal. I have all the normal desires of everybody else, but they're not affected by that. They are not swayed by their fears and desires. They remain what? Constantly, steadily in the self as the self. Looking at their desires from the point of view of the self. These teachers. Friendly to seekers who approach with the proper attitude. Got that proper attitude in there. There's always some people who want to take the piss out of the teacher. They always think they know more than the teacher. Or they've got an issue because they don't like the way the teacher is. So they come up and they try to convince you or bring you down, or they talk about you behind your back, or they judge you because of something they heard or something like that. So those teachers, if they're not friendly to you, maybe you're the problem. Maybe you haven't got the right attitude. So check your attitude out. But my guru, he was very famous. He was so famous, you can't believe. They call him the Pope of India. Very few Westerners have heard of him. But after the talk, if there was 1,000 people there, he stepped down and made himself available and allowed people to come up and talk to him. He ate with us in the dining hall. He could have been sitting on a throne, I tell you. The president of India inaugurated his teachings. That's how famous he was and powerful he was. But he was always available. He opened his little hut, in the afternoon and in the morning, after the class, so people could come in and talk to him. He was available. His whole life was serving other people. You need to be available. You need to present your question directly, in a simple way. So they should be available and should have the right attitude. The seeker, then what should you do? You should ask for protection from the agitations produced by involvement with samsara. You surrender. Here's my problem. What should I do about it? How should I solve this problem? You're just like that. You're straightforward. You don't want to hang out with the teacher. You want to what? Find out the answer to your question. You want to find out. You have to have a question. You see, present it. What is your doubt? You ask. Those composed, saintly, enlightened teachers who have crossed the ocean of samsara are like spring, because they bring new life to inquirers by helping them know the truth without expectation of results. When you come to a proper Mahatma, it's like, wow, it's like a fresh lease on life. And Vedanta is basically the court of last resort. Here. If you come to this, and this doesn't work, boy, there's no place to go. The few people who come here who walk away, they're just not ready. It's not that, because if you're ready and you hear this, you'll understand the value of it. And it'll give you a new hope. It's like the spring. The spring is like a time when you feel hope. You feel reborn. You feel fresh. And so this Vedanta Sampradaya, Sampradaya means the lineage. When you understand that you're under the protection of this lineage, which goes back thousands of years, you can relax and take it easy. You feel reborn. Once accepted as a student, a qualified teacher, an inquirer who comes in contact with such teachers can relax in the shade of the tree of the teaching tradition because he or she understands that Vedanta is a valid and proven means of attaining liberation. You know it's worked. You know this is one that worked. Because the ones that work are the ones that survive. It's like prostitution. Prostitution survives because it works. If it doesn't work, it's not. Religion, there's another one. Religion survives because it works. That's why it's there. And Vedanta survives because it works. This is thousands of years old. And the teaching tradition is still going strong today. The teacher reveals the cause of suffering that leads to many births and deaths to be bondage to the world, the anatma, the objects, brought about by ignorance of the inquirer's true nature, and reveals the solution to be the discrimination between the self, atma, and the not-self, the anatma. The discrimination between the real and the apparently real destroys ignorance and its effects. And then we're going to get into now what the self is and what is the not-self and what is to be known. The method of discrimination, we'll take that up tomorrow. 12 o'clock. We'll take it up tomorrow.